President Trump? Are you looking to buy or lease today?
Well, I'm going to buy. And I'm going to buy because, number one, it's a great product, as good as it gets. And number two, because this man has devoted his energy and his life to doing this. I think he's been treated very unfairly by a very small group of people.
Yes, President Trump yesterday with Elon Musk taking delivery on his new Tesla automobile. The Democrats want to shoot bullet holes through it and then set it on fire, which will put a lot of smoke in the air and pollute the atmosphere because they're the left. President Trump is an important environmentalist. He's buying an electric vehicle, supporting the electric vehicle industry. Democrats are out there setting them on fire, electric vehicles, because almost every Democrat is violently, criminally insane. At least that would appear to be the case. Speaking of environmentalism, I was having fun this morning going back and forth with actually my building manager, Mark, who's a good guy, pro-American. He's on Team America, and that's a good thing. That's a real good thing. And he shared with me this morning a piece from the British Broadcasting Corporation, the BBC, and the story is out of Brazil. What do we keep in Brazil, Michael? What do we? Oh, yeah, the rainforest. The rainforest, it's a foresty area where it rains a lot. It's very moist, and a lot of stuff grows. And the Democrats like to say when they cry, they're always crying about something ridiculous, and that they haven't killed the Jews fast enough or something. They're building rail spurs, I think, the Democrats. But they're always crying, oh, they're the lungs of the world. It's the rainforest, the lungs of the world. And now the British Broadcasting Corporation has a great story today because they have this annual conference they call COP, right? C-O-P, because they're going to cop a squat in the rainforest or whatever it is they're doing. But the COP 30 is later this year, and it's being held in Brazil. And it's the environmentalists gather, and they usually fly in on Gulfstream jets, beautiful jets made in Georgia, USA. You're welcome. And greatest private jet in the world, other than Boeing jets, the really big ones. But never mind that. The Gulfstream, just wonderful. And they all fly into usually John Kerry shows up, Frankenstein. They call him Boltneck. His nickname is Boltneck, and his code name in the government security business is Boltneck. They call him Boltneck. Boltneck is on the move. Boltneck is moving. And he's usually his wife's private jet. They think they have two private jets, right? John Kerry. And he said, remember, he explained that he has to use private jets because his work is important when he flies around the world and lectures other people about polluting by driving four-cylinder vehicles a couple of miles to work in the morning. And he lectures everybody about that while he flies in two-engine private jets and four-engine private jets.
On that issue, pollution, I understand that you came here with a private jet. Is that an environmental way to travel?
If you offset your carbon,
Offset.
It's the only choice for somebody like me who is traveling the world to win this battle.
That's right. It's the only way to travel. If you offset, so he takes his wife's money and gives the money to a left-wing group or left-wing groups, and then the left-wing groups say, oh, you've bought offsets, wink, wink, and then they steal your car and burn your Tesla. But here's the story from the BBC this morning. Amazon forest felled. It's the only context in which you use the word felled. That means that you cut a tree down, you cut down 100 trees, you felled the trees, right? Amazon forest felled to build road for climate summit. Now that makes sense, doesn't it? That's good stuff. A new four-lane highway. A four-lane highway. It's not a two-lane highway. It's not a one-lane. Then you could just build an airstrip. Then you could all fly your private jets in there. Then you wouldn't have to. But listen to this. A new four-lane highway cutting through tens of thousands of acres of protected Amazon rainforest is being built. Why is it being built, Chris? For the COP30 climate summit in the Brazilian city of Belém. They should change the name to Bedlam. Belem doesn't quite capture it anymore. It aims to ease traffic to the city. Well, that's what all four-lane highways aim to do everywhere you go. Hey, why'd you build this four-lane highway through the rainforest? Well, we're looking to ease traffic so we can all drive our cars, maybe electric cars made by Elon Musk, the world's #1 electric car maker. But it aims to ease traffic to the city, as though we don't know why people build highways. Isn't that amazing? Which will host more than 50,000 people, including world leaders, at the conference in November. The state government there in Brazil touts the highway as sustainable. It's sustainable. So they're going to, that means you have to put like a concrete bed down, steel reinforced concrete bed in, and then the asphalt over the top of that. That's a sustainable four-lane highway, you see. They say it's sustainable. It has sustainable credentials. But some locals and conservationists are outraged at the environmental impact. The Amazon plays a vital role in absorbing carbon for the world and providing biodiversity. They love this biodiversity thing. They use the words, but they don't know what they mean. And many say this deforestation contradicts the very purpose of the climate summit. So I'm slapping my forehead with the heel of my hand. Wait a minute. You think that contradicts building a four-lane highway? But wait, there's more. Along the partially built road, lush rainforest towers on either side, a reminder of what was once there. Logs are piled high in the cleared land, which stretches more than 8 miles through the rainforest to Belém. It's an 8-mile-long four-lane highway. Why are you tearing down 8 miles of rainforest building a four-lane highway? Well, because we're environmentalists. We're having an environmental summit to talk about how important we are to the environment. And that's why we're building the 8-mile-long four-lane highway through the rainforest. Here's an aerial photo of the logs, the trees that they have felled, piled high over here. I think they'll make nice tables and things like that. They'll probably just burn them, though, because you know how they are. Diggers and machines carve through the rainforest floor, paving over wetland to surface the road, which will cut through a protected area. Don't you know who they are? These are the most important environmentalists in the world. And they need a nice new four-lane highway through the rainforest to get to their very important environmental COP30 summit. And this is obviously a stain on the conscience of people that are capable of thinking their way out of a paper bag. Just amazing. Claudio Verriquet lives about 200 meters from, it's a BBC story, they use meters, from where the road will be. He used to make an income from harvesting acai berries from trees that once occupied the space. Everything was destroyed, he says, gesturing at the clearing. Our harvest has already been cut down. We no longer have that income to support our family. And then they died. Then the whole family died. It's very sad. Very sad story. All right, they haven't died yet, but it's early. They're still paving the road. He worries the construction of this road will lead to more deforestation in the future now that the area is more accessible for businesses. Our fear is that one day someone will come here and say, here's some money. We need this area to build a gas station. Well, of course, and you need charging stations so the Democrats can burn them. The Democrats will fly down there in Gulfstream jets with John Kerry and stuff, and then they'll set the charging stations for electric vehicles on fire. And then we're going to need to drill for more oil and have to. And this is now, they won't let you take over an area in Alaska that's 2,000 acres in Alaska, and the ANWR, right, the Arctic Wildlife, and because the Democrats won't let you develop that area that is 1/6 the size of Dulles Airport in Alaska, which is larger than Western Europe. And the Democrats, they're very protective of this. Those 2,000 acres very important. But here they are, an 8-mile-long, 4-lane highway to get to an environmental summit in a city that you can already get to. Aren't they amazing? More deforestation in the future. They're going to come, they're going to put in gas stations. They're going to need to build a warehouse, says the man who used to collect his acai berries. Here's a picture of him. He looks very sad because he says, we were born and raised here in the community. It's always the community, isn't it? They love that word. Where are we going to go? Maybe New York. I don't know. Do you hate Jews? Because, they hate Jews in New York. Also, Rosie O'Donnell moving to Ireland. That's pretty funny. Ireland right now is one of the most anti-Semitic countries in the world. And Rosie's moving there because Trump or something like that. She put her cabbage where her mouth is, which is pretty rare for these people. His community won't be connected to the road, given it has walls on either side. There are walls, and they're good with that. Not along the U.S. southern border, where there child sex trafficking and the drug trafficking is going on. The Democrats will lay down in front of trains to prevent that from happening because of the mental illness that is the Democrat Party. For us who live on the side of the highway, there will be no benefits. There will be benefits for the trucks that will pass through. If someone gets sick and needs to go to the center of Bellum, we won't be able to use it. They won't be able to use the 4-lane highway. They're cutting down the rainforest so they can have an environmental summit. No sense of irony for these people.
I want to mourn the loss of all the old growth trees I've seen, and tell them that we love them and that we don't want them to die.
She needs a bag full of fentanyl, doesn't she? She there. These people are unwell. Professor Sylvia Sardinia, she wildlife vet and researcher at the University Animal Hospital that overlooks the site of the new highway. She and her team rehabilitate wild animals with injuries predominantly caused by human or vehicle violence, you see. And once healed, they release them back into the wild. Something she says will be harder if there's a highway on their doorstep. From the moment of deforestation, there's a loss. Now, I mean, these people, they really, the mental illness of these people, pretty amazing stuff. All right, let's, speaking of environmentalists, let's go to Rosie O'Donnell because she announced that she's leaving the United States and she's not coming back. She's going to Ireland. And I don't know how we apologize to Ireland enough, but Ireland's got some pretty crazy left-wing leadership right now. In fact, their leader is in the United States right now. And they don't like the Jews in Ireland, so they should stay in New York. They could join the jihadis there. I'll get to that because that's pretty wackadoodle stuff. But wait till you hear this Rosie O'Donnell fleeing the United States and moving to poor Ireland. Long-suffering Ireland. The potato famine, Bloody Sunday, and Rosie O'Donnell. You know that this country, the United States of America, was built on hard work, thank you very much. Whether you're standing long hours, running errands, chasing the kids all over the place, just doing your part to keep the world turning on its axis, you shouldn't have to deal with fatigue and foot pain and ankle pain, and that's where G-Defy shoes come in. G-Defy shoes, built with a patented VersaShock technology. The Federal Trade Commission has authorized G-Defy to tell you and me and everybody that these shoes help to relieve minor occasional pain associated with walking and running and prolonged periods of standing. G-Defy shoes also help to absorb harmful shock. They align your body, improve your biomechanics, and return energy with every step that you take. My best girl and I, we've each got pairs of G-Defy shoes. They provided us with these wonderful shoes. They make your arches feel great after a long walk. Your feet feel better than before you started. You get 50% off right now. Any order of $120 or more because you hang with me. And all you have to do is text my name, Chris, to 91888, and you're going to get 50% off. Or you can go to Al Gore's Amazing Internet to gdefy.com. Use the code Chris there to save 50% off your order of $120 or more. With G-Defy's 60-day risk-free trial, you got nothing to lose and everything to win. Message and data rates apply. Yeah, Rosie O'Donnell. She's fleeing the United States. Yay! I got a bunch of fun stuff for you coming up on that. And then the jihadis in New York, they call themselves Democrats. They hate the Jews. They dress like terrorists out of, Lawrence of Arabia. Going to attack that Turkish train before the day ends. And we are at 888-630-9625.
So I want you to know that, trees.
Chris here with a list of things that none of us should trust. The Washington Post, the New York Times, anything on CNN. Here's a list of things that I do trust. The Washington Times. Support real journalism for just $1 a week at washingtontimes.com/Chris. All right, Rosie O'Donnell, did she cause the earthquakes in Los Angeles by leaving California? Remains to be seen. Yeah, 2 earthquakes in less than 3 hours. Rosie O'Donnell related quakes. Let's go to the telephones, man. Then wait till you hear these Democrats on the jihadi in New York. Oh no, you can't arrest the jihadi just because he's a jihadi. He's dedicated to an organization that is calling for the total destruction of Western civilization. Speaking of which, I have an update on Ireland as well. Speaking of the destruction of Western civilization that the left is implementing. Let's go to Phil. Let's go to Phil calling from Fredericksburg, Virginia. Phil, you're on the Chris Plant Show.
Good morning, Mr. Plant. Look, President Trump needs to close the Department of Homeland Security. If they can't go up the chain of emails and texts and purchase orders sent to these paramilitary protest/terrorist organizations who are attacking Americans driving Teslas, attacking Tesla dealerships. If they can't arrest the rich people doing this and the people in Congress doing this, the Department of Homeland Security needs to be closed. They just take credit for what all those other great agencies do. They don't do anything. So I think he should close the Department of Homeland Security.
I never liked the idea of the creation of the Department of Homeland Security. It was just a bureaucratic response to a failure of the bureaucracy after the attacks of September 11th and 2001. Hey, we failed. Let's create a new bureaucracy that'll be the new failure next time around. And listen, you're right. We do need to find these. And if you're going around firebombing with Molotov cocktails, born of the Bolshevik Revolution in St. Petersburg in 1917, you're right. We need to capture these firebombing terrorists. And they're shooting up Tesla dealerships, too, because Democrats hate. All right, now, Rosie O'Donnell, you know Rosie O'Donnell. She, 21 years ago, was in a movie called The Flintstones. And she wasn't even Wilma Flintstone. She was Betty Rubble. That is, I think, the number 4 person in The Flintstones in 1994. That's another century. Hollywood is a funny place, isn't it? You can hand in one really incredibly mediocre performance, and decades later you're still dining out on that stuff. Hollywood, and you think she flies private because it's so ridiculous, isn't it? And then complains about the environment. But in any case, she is fleeing the United States of America, which is kind of crazy because. She's, putting her cabbage where her mouth is and leaving the United States. So many Democrats say, Trump wins, I'm going to leave the United States. And here we are months later. She's announcing with a great fanfare that she's leaving the United States. And nobody's unhappy about it. Everybody's absolutely fine with all of this. But the reality is Ireland, this is kind of a funny thing. Ireland has historically been one of the whitest places in the world, one of the whitest countries in the world. But they have lefties there, and they opened their borders about 20 years ago, and the place is very different now, The Fox News people last year, May 12th of 2024, had a story. Here's why Ireland is at boiling point over mass immigration. They don't want, Rosie O'Donnell coming in. Immigration into Ireland has more than doubled over the last 20 years, with 22% of the population now made up of non-citizens. Non-citizens. Now, that's not a racial reference because you could be English or Welsh or Danish or all kinds of things from the neighborhood. The Irish government's unwavering commitment to housing and feeding an unprecedented influx of migrants in the wake of a severe housing and cost of living crisis has brought the Irish electorate to a boiling point again just under a year ago. It has many similarities to the migrant crisis in the United States. Well, but probably not 11 million illegal aliens walking in no Venezuelan gangs, I'm guessing, but amazing stuff. Hundreds of protests in towns across Ireland have sprung up around the country with people calling on the government to end what they say is an open borders globalist agenda that is putting the needs of migrants ahead of its citizens, many of whom are struggling to pay for everyday items and unable to buy or rent homes as Ireland's homeless numbers skyrocket. Now, that is pretty crazy. Several high-profile crimes linked to migrants have also driven fear. They always say it's fear. It's not fear. It's noticing the crime. And a rational response is to say, hey, how do we put an end to the rampant crime? That's what sane and rational cultures do. Into the native citizenry, culminating in the shocking knife attacks on young children and their teacher by an Algerian-born Irish citizen in November that triggered rioting and looting in the nation's capital. It's funny how people from other places are more likely to commit crazy crimes. Why is that? Could be cultural. How could that be? Those who want immigration laws enforced and numbers reduced say they're being ignored by the political establishment. So it is interesting that they've gone from being an Irish culture, and then they say, hey, you got liberals, and they organize, and they get elected, and they steal everything, and they steal elections, and then they say, let's open the borders and let people pour in here from Algeria and stab our children to death. And then they say, well, we're good liberals. You know, it's what we do. That's what we have going on here. Amazing stuff. You people. All right, let's go to Ireland, because Ireland now, it just got worse because Rosie O'Donnell has announced that she is fleeing the United States of America, and she is going to Ireland. Isn't that terrible? Why? Well, because Donald Trump. And the headlines like The Hill in Washington, Rosie O'Donnell moves to Ireland. Quote, heartbreaking to see what's happening in U.S. Well, now that you're leaving, things have gotten a little bit better. And that's Rosie O'Donnell. It's heartbreaking for her to see what's happening in the U.S. The Seattle Times, Rosie O'Donnell becomes latest comedian, she's a comedian now, to leave the U.S. after Trump's reelection. And there she is. She's pretty amazing. Awful, just an awful, terrible person. Rosie O'Donnell reveals she's moved to Ireland in wake of Trump election, Rolling Stone magazine 7 hours ago. So let's go to Rosie, number 19. She is, honestly, the Trump administration is just making things better everywhere you look. We've got bloated, corpulent, radical, left-wing, spoiled brat millionairesses fleeing the United States of America, and they literally, the language they're using is self-deporting, which is pretty great, self-deporting. Rosie O'Donnell flees U.S. after Trump win, won't return until it's, quote, safe for all citizens to have equal rights. When she says, so she means Venezuelan gang members and Jordanian jihadis who actually live in, where is it, Algeria? I think he lives in Mahmoud Khalil lives in Algeria, but he came to the United States to get an Ivy League education because figured that way they'll really be revving up the gas chambers pretty soon, like the left of the Socialist Workers Party of Adolf Hitler. Here is Rosie O'Donnell fleeing the United States.
Well, hey, everybody. It's me, Rosie O'Donnell.
Who cares?
Star of the Flintstones.
Star of the Flintstones.
It's Tuesday all day, as my Nana would say.
Clever.
And I'm here in Ireland.
It's Tuesday all day.
And it's
beautiful
and warm. Not physically. It's actually quite cold.
What
it is safe for all citizens to have equal rights there in America.
Did I just
that's
hear her?
When we will
Did she
consider coming back.
Did I hear in the middle of that sentence? I think she might have leaned up and on one side of the chair because I heard some kind of a noise there that sounded a little like an MSNBC host. That was kind of weird.
You know, it is safe for all citizens to have equal rights there in America.
You hear that? You hear that? That's as a digestive response from Rosie. Hey, put down the cheeseburger over there. What's she eating now? Ireland, not known for their cuisine. But there it is. Until it's safe for people to have rights. She means jihadis and gang members, the open border crowd that she's fled here because it's too dangerous in California. It might burn. The Venezuelan gangs might leave her alone too. They'd see her and say, we'll go to the next house. Because that's Rosie O'Donnell. She's fleeing the United States. And digestive malady in there, that's kind of, I don't know if we can amplify that or if we want to, but.
There.
You hear that? That's, now, I don't think that was entirely internal either. Man, oh man, don't light a flame near her. Because Rosie O'Donnell has been sparring with President Trump since 2006. Really? I hadn't noticed. And now the frequent Trump critic, it's good if you're going to have critics, this is the kind you want, has confirmed she fled the country after his return to the Oval Office. There's one other, who is it, Smelling Degenerate, moved to England, I think, right? I think that's right. The comedian said she's living in Ireland and is in the process of applying for Irish citizenship. So maybe it's not too late to stop that. It's been pretty wonderful, I have to say. And I love the part, it's warm, and then she says, well, not physically. Because that makes a lot of sense. Now, wait a minute. You even moved to Ireland, which is a famously cold, damp country on the Irish Sea, and she says it's warm. Well, not warm, but the opposite of warm.
Warm, not physically. It's actually quite cold.
Naturally. It's warm in Ireland. Well, not physically. Well, warm is a reference to a physical characteristic, but there it is. It's been pretty wonderful after. She's 62 years old, but looks older. And in a TikTok video, people have been so loving. It's just the getting to know you phase. So kind and so welcoming. And I'm very grateful, she says. She's always been a genius. We've made fun of her here on our humble radio show for many years now. The Chris Plant Show. That's what we call it. We call it the Chris Plant Show. And here she was after the radical Islamic jihadi terror attacks on the United States of America, which the Democrat Party now embraces. They love that word embrace, too, don't they? And Rosie O'Donnell, after the attacks on September 11th, she was a conspiracy theorist. She said, oh, no, it wasn't the planes. The U.S. government, George Bush, blew up the World Trade Center. They had wired the stairwells with explosives to collapse those two towers. Nobody noticed that happening. It was just like the paint crew or something like that. And she explained, because she's a woman of science, she figured out, obviously, not from Pittsburgh, where they have steel mills and things.
I do believe that it is the first time in history that fire has ever melted steel. The first time in history, steel was melted by fire. It is physically impossible. Physically impossible for fire to melt steel. Now, every I-beam was made by fire. Every steel plate made by fire. Steel, all steel, is made by fire. That's where steel comes from. But every day is an IQ test. And Rosie, she's not much for IQ. Rosie, big, fat, lesbian, loud Rosie.
Yes. Ireland now gets Rosie O'Donnell. Big, fat, loud, lesbian Rosie. Man, oh, man. In 2014, there was a fun moment. It was This was during a debate, right? Or was it? Oh, no, he was just talking. This was pre-debate. Yeah, but President Trump, just the question of Rosie O'Donnell came up.
Well, Rosie O'Donnell's disgusting. I mean, both inside and out. You take a look at her, she's a slob. She talks like a truck driver.
I wouldn't insult truck drivers the way. I'm sure President Trump didn't mean that as an insult to truck drivers, but that's pretty amazing. But he's known her for a long time.
I've known Rosie for a long time. You know, I've always felt she's a degenerate. She shouldn't.
A degenerate, kind of like smelling. And she's moved to England because very, very upset. Ellen DeGenerate will learn living in England that they have a tax rate for people that make a lot of money like her that she will find very disagreeable. She's going to have to spend 6 months plus 1 day in Florida or something to avoid taxes in Great Britain. But they're very slow learners, these people. They're not bright people, not intelligent people, low IQ people. And they got some issues. Megyn Kelly, the wonderful Megyn Kelly, was talking to President Trump 2016. This was the presidential debate. And Megyn Kelly, that there were some issues, I remember, in that debate. But Megyn Kelly talking about, well, President Trump used some rhetoric, and Megyn Kelly wanted to raise a couple of questions about language that President Trump had been using, and President Trump had to clarify what he was talking about.
You've called women you don't like fat pigs, dogs, slobs, and disgusting animals. Your Twitter account...
Only Rosie O'Donnell.
No, it wasn't. Your Twitter account...
I think the crowd liked it. Only Rosie O'Donnell. No, not women. Only Rosie O'Donnell, President Trump said. That was a fun moment in the presidential debate. Great stuff. Wah, wah, wah. Fun.
When it is safe for all citizens there in America.
Were you able to amplify the B-track audio there because she got that? It was some kind of an intestinal thing. Then she said, what the hell, I'll post the video anyway because it's just me all over the world. No big deal. So, Rosie O'Donnell. Ireland, I'm sorry. I'm very, very sorry that is the... Yes, sir. Yeah, smelling degenerate. She fled the country, too. She had a multi-million-dollar home in Montecito, California. I lived in Montecito for a while. It's not what it used to be, got to say. But she fled and moved to England. Nobody asked about the tax rates before they got there. Remarkable. All right, let's grab a phone call, Michael. Let's go to Rob, calling from Montgomery County, Maryland, hotbed of leftism. Rob, you're on the Chris Plant Show.
Chris, good morning. Thank you for taking my call. I was in mid-bite. I apologize. I had to stop at Panera. So,
had to stop at Panera. That's funny.
Literally. This Caroline Levitt, I'm changing the subject a little bit. She has to spend half the week correcting all the lies after she's telling the truth. I'm so glad that we have the microphone now.
Yeah.
It's a big deal, a real big deal.
Yeah.
That's all I really wanted to say, because I think in the long term, well, hopefully the short term as well, it's going to make a lot of difference. And she is sharp as a tack, like you.
She really is wonderful.
More sharp people.
We do. We do need more sharp people. It's true and well-spoken people. And I think there are more bright, well-spoken people coming forward inside of conservative circles these days, and even Republican circles. The last Republican Speaker of the House, he's a guy who couldn't sew a sentence together to save his life. The new Speaker, I know he's getting some grief, and I understand that, but that's okay. He's Team America, and it's good that he's on our side and that we are on our side. And you're right about Karen Levitt. She is the White House press secretary. She is wonderful, and she is great on her feet and well-spoken, and she's pushing back on the idiocy and the fraud and the lies. You got to win over the next generation with the truth as happened during the Reagan years, producing me among millions of others. And Caroline is great. I got to say, I want to applaud her. You're absolutely right, Robin. You can get back to your Panera lunch now. Now, the Democrat Party is, of course, a violent, ongoing criminal enterprise. Mob violence is their MO. They love Hamas and hate Israel. They hate America and capitalism. They open borders. They love Venezuelan gangs and Mexican cartels. They're not on our side. I've been pointing this out for many years. Bernie Sanders, Bernie the Bolshevik, who has he participated in the Bolshevik Revolution in 1917 in St. Petersburg, where my best girl and I have been repeatedly. St. Petersburg, not participating in communism. But Bernie Sanders yesterday, yesterday was a couple of days ago, he was doing the Pod Kill America, I think, their podcast, and some pajama boy sitting there in cheesy sweat socks that you buy the six-pack. And he's so afraid it's the scariest time that he's ever seen.
These are, the scariest times in my lifetime. That's all. I mean, I think that's objectively the truth. It's objectively the truth. It is not just they want to give tax breaks to billionaires and cut programs for working people. Frankly, so scary. That's happened before. Yeah. But you combine that.
That's not happening and hasn't happened.
The power of the oligarchy in general. You combine that with Mr. Musk owning Twitter.
George Soros.
And able to send out his messages to hundreds of millions of people.
Jack Dorsey.
So it's not only the power of money, it's also combined with that, the movement toward authoritarianism.
It was great when Jack Dorsey, a leftist, owned Twitter, and they literally trampled free speech in America by way of their communist billionaire oligarch friend Jack Dorsey as the owner of Twitter. He was good with that. These communists and Bernie the Bolshevik, you heard him trying to suck the food out from between the giant gaps in his teeth. That boy, yeah, and Musk is in danger.